finding your purpose, finding your calling, these are giant issues. And they come up a lot in the men that I work with and at our live events. And there's so many parts to this. There's no way I could cover this adequately in one 5-minute Friday video. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to raise some ideas and some giant big questions for you to think about as we work through this issue. So let's get started. As I begin, I want to start with a definition in the first place. What is purpose? According to the dictionary, purpose as a noun, it's the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. Or as a verb, it's to have as one's intention or objective. But I want to go down a level, so to speak. I want to start with asking, when does your individual purpose, when does that begin? Is it when you're an adult, when you get married, when you first become a parent, maybe your first job? If you've been created for a purpose, if you've been called by God, when does that happen? Well, let's see what the Bible says about when purpose starts. 2 verses come to mind here. In Jeremiah 1:5, we read, "I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as my prophet to the nations." In Psalm 139:13 through 16, we read, "You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed." So God knew you before you saw the light of day. God knew you as you were being formed in your mother's womb, and that's actually when your purpose began. The moment you began growing, He gave you life. He created you for a purpose. That first day is when your purpose started. But if that's the case, if your purpose has been with you since day one, why does it seem so elusive? Why does it seem such a challenge to pinpoint your purpose, to answer these deep questions about ourselves, why we're here on earth, and what our purpose really is after all? For today, perhaps the most important point to examine is this. Do you, as a Christian, do you have a unique purpose or a unique calling that's different from others who are not Christian? Do you have a purpose that our secular family and friends, that they don't have? I would argue that yes, you most definitely do. As a Christian, you've been given a gift of a calling. Not just the abilities and gifts to pursue a career, a passion, or even your major life goals. You've been given a calling. And like the need to define purpose, we also need to define calling. So what is a calling? I like the definition of calling that states it's an external commission from God for the sake of the world. Now I want to break that down a little bit. External, that means it's something beyond you. You don't simply sit down and use a planning system to create the goals that you want to hit. And then commission from God. That means that this is a calling you've been given by God, as He knew you before you were in the womb and before you were born. And lastly, for the sake of the world. It means this is not just about you. It's not something that you use to focus on your own accomplishments, your own achievements, and all the things you want to do. Now, if you're created for a purpose, if you've been given a calling from God, how do you figure out what that purpose is and what that calling is? As you start to work through this, I'm going to share a bunch of questions here for you to think about, for you to consider. And one of them, a critically important question, is, who are you? The answer to your question, who am I? That will illuminate much about what purpose you're currently pursuing in this life. This question, it's tied into things like knowing your strengths and weaknesses, knowing your skills and your abilities, knowing your talents, how you manage relationships, and so on. It's a big question, and we actually spend lots of time working on that during BASECAMP, our live event. But as a Christian, your identity here, knowing who you are, that's critical. As a follower of Christ, you are redeemed, you are liberated, you are loved. No matter your current situation, that's the truth right now. You are a redeemed, liberated, loved child of God. And a related question, along with who am I, is whose am I? This is a powerful question for you to spend time on. Who are you really living for? Who are you aligned with? Who have you given your life to? In the bigger picture of life itself, who is the one that you're answering to for your life? As you think about these questions, and as I wrap up today, I want you to take these verses from Romans 14, verses 7 through 9. Take these to heart. For we don't live for ourselves or die for ourselves. If we live, it's to honor the Lord. And if we die, it's to honor the Lord. So whether we live or die, we belong to the Lord. Christ died and rose again for this very purpose, to be Lord both of the living and the dead. So as you go about your day today, as you think about these questions, as you start working on your purpose and your calling, remember that first and foremost, you live for the Lord. And we do spend a lot of time on questions like this and working through the issue of identity, purpose, and calling at our BASECAMP event. It's 4 days, 3 nights up in the Colorado mountains. We have a great time, work through serious issues, go out and do a lot of adventure stuff. We're hiking, we're rock climbing, rappelling, awesome food. It's just a great experience. So head over to significantman.com and you can check out the BASECAMP experience there. Please be sure to subscribe to this show, rate it, and leave a review. Your ratings and your reviews, they help other people find the show. So thank you for that. And all right, enjoy the next show.